Dontnod are masters of narrative-driven games, and trust me, this video will contain things that you will have missed or not even crossed your mind. Lost Records Bloom and Rage Take 1 dropped on February 18th, and I've been dying to step into Speculation Station and talk theories, predictions, and everything concerning our Riot girls. What's up? How's it going, people? Jay the Casual Gamer here. The Spoilercasts on this channel are my more enjoyable and informal affair where I just chat to you guys about everything I love, accompanied by my research and personal opinion on lore and stories. Given Dontnod's narrative structure when it comes to games and the spiderweb of outcomes, this Spoilercast is going to be a little bit different and is going to be more focused on wild speculation and theories as opposed to story breakdowns. Having said that, if you just want my general thoughts of Take 1, check out my review. Now, it goes without saying that there are heavy spoilers ahead. This is your final warning. Okay, let's get into it as I just can't wait anymore. I'm so excited to talk about my theories and what I've discovered. There's so many theories I don't even know where to start. I feel like Charlie Day in that meme. Let's start though with one of the more fleshed out theories, the fifth member theory. Now, as Autumn hints at the start of the game, she is struggling to remember what happened, something Swan and Nora both relate to. Autumn then says something along the lines of, "I'm worried I'm forgetting something really important." Now, this line itself can relate to pretty much any of the theories I will touch on in this video, but let's apply it to the fifth member theory for now. What if the thing that they are forgetting is literally another member of the group? There is a reason why this is a prominent theory floating about. Firstly is the shadows that keep popping up. If you look at the ones here, while most of them do look a lot like Kat and Corey's models, not all of them do. I will bring up the shadows in the next theory too, but for this theory, imagine the shadows as being the people that were lost, i.e. Kat from the cancer, Corey from maybe the fire everyone keeps talking about, and then this fifth member. Why did this fifth member die? Well, there are two possibilities. One is simply they sacrificed themselves to the abyss in order to save Kat from her cancer. Whether this is successful or not is yet to be seen. My other working theory is with the fire at the ranch. The fire at the ranch is mentioned in a couple of reminiscences. The first, when you touch the deer head at the bar, Kat and Nora talk about burning all the weapons at the ranch. Later, Autumn and maybe Nora mention that Corey got blamed for what happened at the ranch. My assumption here is that Kat and possibly the other girls succeed in setting fire to the ranch, but then Kat gets trapped and the fifth member tries to help her but also dies in the process. The next supporting evidence I will present is this picture of the girls standing at the mouth of the abyss. It is plausible that someone is holding Nora's hand on the right. Next for the fifth member theory is the idea that the fifth member could be Swan's sister. There are several things that point towards duality in Swan's room. First is her deep interest in the Dusk Sisters film, in which she has also a couple of posters hanging up for it. As you can see here, the Dusk Sisters cover art is one sister looking at a shadow version of the other, much like what is happening in Tape 1. Under Swan's bed, there is a story she wrote about an agent who comes face to face with someone who looks like themselves. Could be Swan's sister, or could point to another theory I will look at. There is a common theme here as a lot of things I analyze in this video can be applied to multiple theories, which is what makes it also interesting. Another poster on the wall depicts something called Mirror Cities, which once again points to the narrative of a mirror self with two people standing on the cover art. There is also the scrunched up piece of paper on the floor that points to synchronized swimming, which of course has to be done with more than one person, but I do understand this piece of evidence is not as strong as the others. Then there is the two pairs of slippers that appear later in the title, which some have speculated to be a bug, but Dontnod are usually very purposeful with these kind of things. Much later in the game, just before the girls perform at the bar, if you go inside the porch bit with Swan, you can see graffiti that reads, "See you in another life, sister," which for me is very much foreshadowing. To conclude the Swan sister theory, I will point to a very intriguing book called The Willow Tree Coven. The start of the blurb reads as such. For generations, the venerable Allery family of St. Landry has been haunted by a legacy of vanishing women. The eldest daughter in each branch of the family tree is born to an ominous fate, to disappear just as she reaches womanhood, never to be found again. That literally could not be more exact, and it's found right at the start of the game in Swan's bedroom. I have seen someone else mention that they think this can refer to Kat and Dylan, but I find this unlikely as when you first enter the bar in the present timeline, there is a poster for the Michelson Ranch that says Dylan is still alive. Therefore, the only way I could see this being applicable is if it's Kat posing as her sister, as she feels guilt due to some kind of sacrifice Dylan did in 1995. I'm not drawn to this idea too much though, I think it's pretty unlikely. Why I'm heavily behind the Swan sister theory is because of the decision to have the present day in first person. There is no reason to do this unless Swan may appear differently. My thought is that the Swan we see in the past may not be the Swan of the future, and it comes down to a choice of sacrifice in tape 2 as to which sister you play as in the present timeline. To wrap up this thread of the 5th member, we look at the box itself. The reason why Autumn invited everyone back to Velvet Cove. Looking at the box here, you can see that one of the newspaper clippings refers to a missing local, and it is dated September 22nd, 1995, which would place it just after the summer of 95 and would line up with the period where tape 2 would take place. This could refer to Kat herself, as she is the only one not to appear in the present day as of current, but it is also likely that she died. What pushes me off the idea of this being Kat the most is what is on the other side of the box, where it says, "I was there, remember." Now that wouldn't make sense for it to be Kat, as the girls clearly remember her in the reminiscing. So in my eyes, it has to be someone that they are forgetting. There is one other person that it could be, and this theory I like a lot too. Let's look at Pam. Pam is the older lady that enters the bar in present day a bit further into tape 1. Now, you can choose not to engage in conversation with her at all, which means you would have missed all of this sweet speculation. Not to worry though, as that's why I'm here. Pam says 3 things of note. She knows Autumn's mum, she researches things of a paranormal nature and asks Swan directly if she remembers anything weird happening in the past, and her and Gus remark about there being something in the air tonight. Now, we do see Pam in 1995. She is right at the end of tape 1 attending the concert for the girls. Assuming Pam was into the paranormal back in 95 too, it is very plausible that she would have got involved in the Abyss in some way. Then there's a lock at the Michelson Ranch that references Pam and Steve. I also think she was introduced in the game at a later stage as a focal point for a reason. My thoughts are either that she witnessed the girl do the bad thing, which I assume is some kind of sacrifice to the Abyss, or they know that they would lose their memories and so they gave the box to Pam to deliver to their future selves. Both of these possibilities lead to it being Pam who sends the box being delivered to Autumn's mum address, who Pam has already said that she knows. So really, everything is lining up for Pam being the deliverer of the box. I think we're going to see a lot more of Pam in tape 2. An important question that needs to be answered is, what's in the box? When you rotate it, you can hear something moving about, but I'm not sure how accurate dontnod would have matched the audio samples here. I'm fairly confident that the box either contains the incriminating tapes or Swan's camera itself with the footage on. I mean, the game is literally called Lost Records after all, right? If we wanted to speculate a different angle, it could be the sacrifices offered to the Abyss that made the girls forget their memories. We only see 3 offerings in tape 1 as Autumn doesn't do one. Kat's pin and Swan's flower or hair, we are unsure of the results of these. But Nora threw her pick in and we know that she fell out of the music scene, which was her dream. I'm very interested to see what the girls offered in payment of asking for their memories to be wiped. Another significant theory that is floating in this space is the dual timelines theory. The idea that there are multiple timelines overlapping each other at once. This does not just apply to 1995, but also 2022. We see several shadows appear in 95 flashbacks. In the park, Nora's garage, loads in Fawns' rest/curse, and as I mentioned earlier, they resemble Kat and Corey for the most part. The shadow that appears in the Bloody Mary scene even sounds like it has Kat's voice. I imagine the Abyss is a give and take kind of entity. With Nora, it gave her the fame she wanted but took the music away. What if you jumping in it saves your life but takes away your freedom? You are trapped in a place outside of space and time, never aging, never truly existing. In this case, it is Kat and Corey who I think jump into the Abyss in tape 2, Corey presumably chasing after Kat. Now, these 1995 versions of Kat and Corey are trapped and can travel between timelines, allowing their shadows to exist earlier in the summer of 95, as well as in the 2022 timeline. Whether they are friendly or haunting beings is yet to be discovered. I imagine that once again depends on the choice the girls make in tape 2. For this reason, I suppose it is possible that both Kat and Corey can exist in 2022 if they can be saved from the abyss. They will just be the ages as they were back in 1995. This is supported by the newspaper article about the missing man Gil Davidson. Gil is a hunter who went missing in 1975 and reappeared 20 years later in 1995, appearing to not have aged a day. There is no reason why this could not happen again, say 27 years later? Gil claims it to be aliens, just like a certain Fred I will touch on later, but what I feel would be more interesting to know is why the Abyss released him 20 years later. Was it because it took another person instead? Then there is the miners. In an article very close to the one I just spoke about, reads that the whole group of miners went missing in the woods in 1889. A miner himself, Jake Potter, we learn was the original inhabitant of Fawns Rest/Curse. There are several documents littered about the cabin referencing this, as well as a copper nugget and several mining helmets. Then there is the memorial for a miner, presumably Jake, on the path from the cabin to the clearing where the abyss lies, dated 1889, which would line up with this exactly. Jake talks about hearing a calling in the night which could have resulted in him leading the miners to the abyss, much like Kat with the girls. Both of these pieces of evidence clearly point to the fact that the abyss is capable of holding someone in a time stasis, and it could certainly be doing that again here with Kat and Corey. I could also bring back my previous note about Swan's story under her bed about looking at someone almost identical to herself. What if it was herself? And Swan, Kat, Corey, and whoever else are stuck in some kind of time loop and they need to escape. Maybe one of them jumped in and has only managed to get out now 27 years later, still as a 16-year-old, and gave the package to Pam to deliver to Autumn's mum to get the present day girls back in action. This could make sense if Swan ends up throwing her tapes and camera down as sacrifices, meaning only someone who was inside the abyss could return them. To support this time loop theory, I turn to the memoirs that Swan records. Firstly, all of them are dated until you get to the ones that are within the cabin or in the surrounding areas with the abyss. These ones are not dated at all. Secondly, if you listen to the memoir Swan does of the abyss, she says this: "I've been here before. We've always been here. Here and unhere. Kat is there. Kat was always there. Kat was staring down at the lights in the abyss. Kat was calling up from down below. The voices are old and young. They are watching. They remember everything and nothing. They are shadows of what used to be. They want to come back, but they are afraid." There's a lot to unpack here, but the common theme of "we've always been here and Kat has always been there" certainly supports a time loop. The shadows watching and the voices of old and young could support the dual timeline theory too. Kat both looking down and looking up from the abyss sounds kind of like an upside down situation, and does sound to me like her real self is trapped in the abyss while the one we see is trapped in a time loop. On my most recent playthrough, I noticed something I hadn't before with the trees. If you look here at these images, you can see that all of the trees that are cut have open eyes, whereas the ones that have grown normally have closed eyes. I think this could mean that those who are trapped by the abyss and or sacrificed to it are the ones that are watching as their lives were cut short, just like the trees. Perhaps it means that they are simply watching those who are broken in some way, which sadly all of the girls are, Kat obviously more so. The graffiti in the bar says "real eyes, real lies," which could mean that it is watching and targeting those who are lying to themselves and others, Kat with her leukemia being an example here. The lies of the others yet to be revealed. Corey, we can all agree, is a prominent character in Tape 1 and will be again in Tape 2. His fate, I feel, will be a player choice much like Kat's. I can't shake the feeling that he is a red herring villain for someone yet to be introduced. Either Kat's parents or maybe even Pam or Gus. He is a complete dickhead to the girls, yes, but he does seem to care for Kat, especially at the end where he carries her off. He also has a letter from Dylan and his bike, which seems to imply he has some sense of compassion. He is mentioned as being blamed for the fire, and the girls really talk about him in disgust in 95, so I feel they will try and either sacrifice him or cause him to die through their actions. The thing I can't quite seem to explain is the figure in the wolf mask who seems to be hunting the girls. Everything points towards this being Corey. The figure in the mask has heterochromia, which is a rare condition but also one we know that Corey has. Secondly, Corey has a hunter's license. He works on the Michelson Ranch where he hunts deer. The girls consider themselves fawns that inhabit Fawns Rest/Curse. There is a character sheet you find in his bike for the D&D game which shows he has a hunter's brain, as all of his equipment, inventory and skills point towards that. As for why he's hunting them, as I said, I can't quite explain. If I had to guess, I could offer two potential reasons. One, he thinks they killed Kat, or two, he is possessed. Neither of these possibilities make sense to me really, but maybe they become clearer with things in tape 2. There is so much juicy stuff to draw threads and theorize on, but there is also some stuff that I feel is significant, but I can't seem to figure out why. The first thing here is Gus, the bartender. Gus is the first person we are introduced to in the game as he welcomes Swan into the bar. He is also very close friends with Pam and mentions that she sometimes takes him out on her ghost hunts. I'm positive that Gus is significant, but I can't figure out why. I've seen some theories say that he is the guy that reappeared after being missing for 20 years, which would line up with his age, but I don't see any reason for this to be the case. He also doesn't seem to be at the band's concert like Pam is in 1995. He plays such a big role in Take 1, I just can't see him being an irrelevant character, but I have no ideas as to how he will tie into the story yet. Next is the Gemstone Necklaces. In these pictures here, you can see the same style gemstone necklace in 3 different places. The first is in Swan's room, a green one sitting just above her TV in all instances when you are there. The next is on Autumn, in the present day timeline. It is a purple one and definitely the same design. The last is on Kat, which is a blue one. The image here I have from the day that the girls clean up and name the cabin, but she does also wear it here at the end when the girls play the concert. I couldn't find an instance of Nora wearing the necklace or having one sitting around, which I also think is significant. As for the colours, it could simply be their favourite colours, as blue is the colour Kat suggests for the Bloom and Rage banner, whilst Autumn picks purple, but the matching necklaces themselves seem to have more importance. I also think it matters that Swan's is not being worn. Maybe it's an indicator of being selected by the Abyss, Kat back in 1995 for the sacrifice, and Autumn in 2022 for the box. Fred is the next head scratcher I present to you. When Swan and Autumn stumble across the area which seems to be inhabited by a homeless person on the night they are looking for the keys, there is this book that they find. It's a sci-fi book and scribbled on the back it reads, "The Grey Gang eats the sand from the worm guts. It is in this book and in my brain. Property of Fred." There are also little drawings of aliens, all of whom seem to be frowning. I really don't know what this means, but there are lots of swirls and distortion in this area that we connect to the Abyss, so I imagine Fred is tied to it somehow. Perhaps he is mistaking the voices and shadows to be aliens. He is not present at his campsite, so he may even be the most recent victim to the Abyss, or maybe even a sacrifice. The only other mention of Fred is behind the blue spruce at the end, where we see graffiti that reads, "Fred is with us," once again accompanied by an alien and a swirl. Lastly is the origin of Fawns Rest/Curse. We know that Jake Potter the miner lived there before his disappearance, but did it even pre-exist him? There's this creepy mask sitting above the door that kind of looks like a demon, which I can't seem to provide any explanation of. It could just be a symbol of a curse that the Abyss presents to its inhabitants. Next, there is this book which, when Swan examines, there is a bit of dialogue where she mentions to Autumn in the present day about how it was more than what they expected. This book has handwriting in it which says, "If you have found this, freedom lies inside. Claire." This is followed by a passage in French which is loosely translated to, "Great nature, universal and common, everywhere innumerable and one. If it is so, from you I have opened what in these mons was closed and covered." First, who is Claire? It sounds almost like they are guiding people to that place and therefore the Abyss. Jake drew his fellow miners there and Kat drew the girls there. Freedom lies inside could refer to the cabin or the book itself. I couldn't find much about the book online outside of it maybe being something related to the French Revolution, so I'm not too sure of the parallels here. As for the French translation, it heavily implies a power of nature that has been hidden, which would be the Abyss. Mons is Latin for mountains, meaning the abyss was closed and covered in these mountains. I don't particularly think the setting of Velvet Cove is mountainous, but it may just be a turn of phrase. This to me then gives a new meaning to freedom lies inside, which would be that freedom lies inside the abyss, which is now uncovered. I couldn't see any mention of Claire in the game, but I'm sure that this is an important plot point. She may even be the leader or a member of a witch coven, explaining all the symbols hanging in the cabin. This text is accompanied by a drawing of a raven, which we see flocking to the clearing where the abyss lies every time we are there. It could simply be a witch's curse designed to lure the vulnerable. That's all the theories I have for you guys today. It was a lot, but I absolutely loved every minute of it. I'm really impressed by this game, and I really can't wait to see how the story ends in Tape 2. Imagine if all that I've speculated here is miles off from the real outcome. I honestly wouldn't put that past dontnod. Either way, I know whatever route they choose to go is going to absolutely shatter our hearts, as really that's what they do best. It would be great to hear what you all think of what I said in the comments below, or even present your own theories. If you enjoy this content, please leave a like and subscribe, and for everything casual gamer, keep it here. Peace and love.